Hello everyone, and welcome back to the channel. Today, we're opening the doors to a world that most Americans know nothing about. A world where the real power of the nation quietly hides behind money, influence, and silence. In this documentary, we're exploring the hidden billionaires who control America, not through politics, not through elections, but through wealth so massive. Its influence reaches deeper than the government itself. Most people believe the president holds the ultimate power in the United States. But behind every major policy, every economic shift, and every technological revolution, there are individuals operating quietly, strategically, and far away from the spotlight. These billionaires don't appear on news channels. They don't give speeches. And they rarely show their faces in public. But their decisions shape the markets, control the flow of technology, and influence the future of industries that define America's power. They own the data companies that follow your digital life. They finance the research that builds future AI. They control private investment groups that can move billions of dollars with a single meeting, often deciding which companies rise and which collapse. And the most shocking part? They operate through systems that are perfectly legal, structures designed to protect their wealth, their privacy, and their influence. So in this documentary, we're pulling back the curtain. We're looking into the hidden empires, the secret networks, and the financial shadows that influence America more than any election ever could. Get ready, because this is the world almost nobody talks about, yet it affects every single one of us. To understand how billionaires control America today, we first need to go back, far back, to the origins of American wealth. Long before Silicon Valley, long before Wall Street became a global powerhouse, a small group of families laid the foundation of modern American power. Names like Rockefeller, Carnegie, Morgan, and Vanderbilt didn't just build companies. They built systems that shaped banking, oil, steel, railroads, and finance. These early empires created generational wealth so massive that it didn't disappear with time. It multiplied. As decades passed, these fortunes evolved. Old money merged with new money. Industrial wealth transformed into financial dominance, and influence quietly moved from factories into boardrooms. Today, America's billionaire dynasties rarely appear in headlines. Their names are hidden behind trusts, foundations, and private investment firms. But their influence flows through almost every major industry: technology, defense, pharmaceuticals, media, and energy. These families don't need public attention. Their power doesn't come from popularity. It comes from ownership. Ownership of companies that control data. Ownership of firms that fund political campaigns. Ownership of institutions that shape public opinion without ever appearing on camera. And as technology advances, a new generation of billionaires joins the old guard. Tech founders, hedge fund giants, and private equity kings, all merging into a single, silent force. This is not a conspiracy theory. This is a structure where money doesn't just buy influence. It becomes influence. And in modern America, those who control capital often control the future. When people think about political power in America, they imagine elections, debates, and campaigns. But real influence doesn't always begin at the ballot box. Across the United States, billionaires shape politics in quieter ways, not by becoming politicians, but by influencing the systems that politicians depend on. Campaigns are expensive. Elections require funding. And behind nearly every major political movement, there is money often coming from a very small group of extremely wealthy donors. Through political donations, super PACs, and independent funding groups, billionaires gain access, not control access. Access to private meetings, access to policymakers, access to conversations that never appear on television. Beyond elections, influence continues through lobbying. Corporations and private interests legally fund lobbying groups to advocate for regulations that align with their economic goals. Energy policies, technology laws, financial regulations, healthcare rules. These decisions don't happen overnight. They are shaped slowly through reports, research funding, expert panels, and closed-door discussions. Another powerful tool is philanthropy. Billionaires fund universities, think tanks, and research institutions, helping guide which ideas are studied, promoted, and recommended to governments. Again, this influence is legal. It operates within the framework of American democracy. But critics argue that when wealth becomes too concentrated, the voices of ordinary citizens can struggle to compete. Supporters argue the opposite, that private funding accelerates innovation, research, and economic growth. So the real question isn't whether billionaires influence politics. They do. The real question is how much influence is too much, and where the line between support and power should be drawn. In modern America, political power doesn't always wear a campaign badge. Sometimes it wears a business suit. In the modern United States, power doesn't always come from money alone. It comes from information. What people see, what they read, what they believe. Over the last 2 decades, media and technology have merged into a single force. Television networks, social media platforms, search engines, and streaming services now shape public opinion on a massive scale. Behind many of these platforms are billionaires, owners, investors, and stakeholders, who don't create the content, but control the systems that deliver it. Algorithms decide what trends, data decides what reaches your screen, and attention has become the most valuable currency of all. Technology companies collect enormous amounts of data, search history, location patterns, viewing habits, and digital behavior, not to spy, but to predict. Prediction powers advertising. Advertising powers influence. In media, ownership matters. When a small number of corporations control news outlets, streaming platforms, and digital advertising networks, they gain the ability to shape narratives. Not by telling people what to think, but by deciding what they see first and what they never see at all. Supporters argue this system fuels innovation, connects people globally, and provides free access to information. Critics warn it creates echo chambers, reduces diversity of viewpoints, and concentrates influence in too few hands. In America's digital age, the most powerful voice isn't always the loudest one. It's the one backed by data, reach, and technology. And as artificial intelligence becomes more advanced, the control of information may define the next era of power in the United States. As we move deeper into the 21st century, the question is no longer whether billionaires influence America. The question is how that influence will evolve. The next chapter of power will not be built only on oil, factories, or real estate. It will be built on artificial intelligence, data, automation, and financial technology. AI is changing how decisions are made. Algorithms already guide investments, predict markets, and manage risk faster than any human ever could. In finance, speed is power. Those who control the fastest systems, the most advanced models, and the deepest data pools gain an enormous advantage. At the same time, digital currencies, blockchain networks, and private financial platforms are challenging traditional banking systems. Some experts believe this shift could democratize finance, giving ordinary people more access and control. Others warn it may concentrate power even further, placing unprecedented influence in the hands of a small number of private players. Beyond money, artificial intelligence is shaping national security, healthcare, transportation, and communication. Private companies now develop technologies that governments rely on to function. This creates a future where public institutions and private power are more interconnected than ever before. Supporters say this partnership accelerates innovation. Critics worry it reduces transparency. So the future of America may depend on balance, balancing innovation with accountability, growth with fairness, and private influence with public oversight. Because in the end, the greatest challenge isn't wealth itself. It's ensuring that power, no matter where it comes from, serves the many, not the few. Money has always played a role in America's economy. But in the modern era, wealth doesn't just participate in the economy, it designs it. Behind the stock market, behind inflation numbers, behind rising prices and falling wages, there exists a financial structure controlled by a very small group of powerful investors. Billionaires influence the economy not by managing day-to-day businesses, but by deciding where capital flows. When they invest, industries rise. When they pull out, entire sectors collapse. Through hedge funds, private equity firms, venture capital networks, and asset management giants, a handful of individuals influence housing markets, healthcare costs, energy prices, and even food supply chains. Private equity firms quietly buy hospitals, housing complexes, grocery chains, and logistics companies. They restructure them for efficiency and profit. Supporters say this improves performance. Critics argue it raises costs for everyday Americans. In the stock market, algorithmic trading, controlled by elite financial institutions, moves faster than human decision-making. Markets can crash or surge in seconds, often before the public understands what happened. Technology companies funded by billionaire capital reshape labor itself. Automation replaces jobs. Gig work replaces stability. Efficiency replaces security. At the same time, billionaires benefit from tax systems filled with legal advantages. Offshore accounts, deductions, trusts, and asset shelters protect wealth across generations. This creates a system where money doesn't simply circulate, it concentrates. Supporters argue this concentration fuels innovation, growth, and global competitiveness. They point to breakthroughs in technology, medicine, and infrastructure funded by private wealth. Critics warn that when too much economic power rests in too few hands, democracy weakens, wages stagnate, inequality grows, and the middle class shrinks. So the American economy moves forward, but not always evenly. The question is no longer whether billionaires influence the economy. They clearly do. The real question is whether America can balance private power with public prosperity. Money has always played a role in America's economy. But in the modern era, wealth doesn't just participate in the economy, it designs it. Behind the stock market, behind inflation numbers, behind rising prices and falling wages, there exists a financial structure controlled by a very small group of powerful investors. Billionaires influence the economy not by managing day-to-day businesses, but by deciding where capital flows. When they invest, industries rise. When they pull out, entire sectors collapse. Through hedge funds, private equity firms, venture capital networks, and asset management giants, a handful of individuals influence housing markets, healthcare costs, energy prices, and even food supply chains. Private equity firms quietly buy hospitals, housing complexes, grocery chains, and logistics companies. They restructure them for efficiency and profit. Supporters say this improves performance. Critics argue it raises costs for everyday Americans. In the stock market, algorithmic trading, controlled by elite financial institutions, moves faster than human decision-making. Markets can crash or surge in seconds, often before the public understands what happened. Technology companies funded by billionaire capital reshape labor itself. Automation replaces jobs. Gig work replaces stability. Efficiency replaces security. At the same time, billionaires benefit from tax systems filled with legal advantages. Offshore accounts, deductions, trusts, and asset shelters protect wealth across generations. This creates a system where money doesn't simply circulate, it concentrates. Supporters argue this concentration fuels innovation, growth, and global competitiveness. They point to breakthroughs in technology, medicine, and infrastructure funded by private wealth. Critics warn that when too much economic power rests in too few hands, democracy weakens, wages stagnate, inequality grows, and the middle class shrinks. So the American economy moves forward, but not always evenly. The question is no longer whether billionaires influence the economy. They clearly do. The real question is whether America can balance private power with public prosperity. Power has never been a simple concept in America. From its earliest days, the nation was built on a belief that no single individual should hold absolute control. And yet, history shows that power always finds a way to concentrate. Today, as billionaire influence stretches across the economy, technology, media, and innovation, the United States faces a deeper question, not a political one, not a legal one, but a human one. How much power should any individual or private group have over the lives of millions? Supporters of concentrated wealth argue that billionaires are builders, risk-takers, visionaries who invest where governments hesitate and move faster than public institutions ever could. They point to revolutionary technologies, life-saving medical research, climate solutions, and global connectivity, all fueled by private capital. And in many cases, they are right. Philanthropy, funded by billionaire wealth, has built hospitals, universities, research labs, and disaster relief systems that save lives every day. In moments of crisis, private funding often arrives faster than government aid. But critics raise an uncomfortable concern. When private wealth decides which problems deserve attention, who decides what gets ignored? Unlike elected officials, billionaires are not accountable to voters. They do not stand before the public to explain their decisions. Yet their choices influence education systems, healthcare access, labor markets, and the technologies that shape everyday life. As artificial intelligence advances, this imbalance may grow even stronger. AI systems now guide financial markets, manage information flows, influence hiring decisions, and shape national security infrastructure. And many of these systems are built, owned, and controlled by private companies. Governments increasingly depend on technologies developed outside public oversight. This creates a future where influence operates quietly embedded into systems people rely on but rarely see. America now stands at a crossroads. One path leads toward transparency, accountability, and shared responsibility where private power exists, but within clear limits designed to protect the public good. The other path allows influence to expand unchecked, guided primarily by profit, competition, and ambition. History teaches us that strong nations do not eliminate power. They balance it. They ensure innovation does not outrun ethics. They ensure wealth does not replace democracy. And they ensure progress benefits the many, not just the few. The future of America will not be decided by billionaires alone. It will be shaped by the choices society makes about oversight, fairness, and responsibility. Because in the end, true power is not measured by how much money someone controls, but by how responsibly that power is used. And the story of America has always been about one question above all others. Who does the future belong to? As this documentary comes to an end, one truth becomes clear. The story of power in America is not simple. It is layered, complex, and constantly evolving. Billionaires influence the economy. They shape technology. They help drive innovation that changes lives. But they are only one part of a much larger system. The future of America will not be decided in secret boardrooms alone. It will be shaped by laws, institutions, public awareness, and the choices society makes about transparency and responsibility. History shows us that great nations are not defined by wealth alone. They are defined by balance. Balance between power and accountability, between innovation and ethics, between private success and public good. America has faced moments like this before. Moments where progress moved faster than regulation, where new systems demanded new rules. And each time, the nation had to decide what kind of future it wanted to build. That decision still remains. The question is not whether billionaires exist. They always will. The real question is whether power, no matter who holds it, is guided by responsibility, fairness, and oversight. Because the future of America does not belong to a few individuals. It belongs to everyone who lives in it. And understanding how power works is the first step towards shaping what comes next. If you found this documentary informative, if it helped you see the world a little more clearly, then take a moment to support the channel. Like the video, share it with others, and subscribe for more in-depth documentaries, exploring power, technology, and the future of our world. Your support helps us continue creating content that informs, challenges, and inspires. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next documentary.